Hello and welcome to Boring History and Sleep. If you're listening from a quiet corner of the world, maybe wrapped in a blanket in a small town in Maine, or lying in bed as the mist settles over the English countryside, feel free to tell us where you are and what time it is. We love reading your comments. They remind us that somewhere out there someone is falling asleep to a story and maybe finding a little peace. And if this journey through time brings you even a moment of rest or wonder, consider leaving a like or subscribing to the channel. It helps our stories reach more people and keeps the dream going. Tonight we're slipping through the folds of a forgotten empire, a place once so glorious, so unfathomably rich in spirit and stone, that even its shadows gleamed with the golden breath of the gods. You are not just stepping into history, you are stepping into Angkor. The wind is warm here, sweet thick with the scent of frangipani blossoms and jungle soil. You can almost feel it now brushing your skin, as the darkness of night presses gently on the temple's ancient stones. Somewhere in the distance, water licks quietly at the edge of a reservoir as wide as a sea. Moonlight lies flat on its surface like polished ivory. And there in the hush you hear it. A rustle in the trees, a creak of sandalwood doors, a breath held and never quite released, because Angkor is still listening, still watching. It is not yet forgotten. The year is unclear. The calendars are carved in Sanskrit and the whispers of court scribes, but the air smells of change. The statues of gods and demons that line the stone causeways have grown weary. Their faces once fierce or serene now carry the sadness of all things impermanent. You step barefoot along a crumbling gallery. The walls are covered in stories, armies marching in rows, celestial dancers with arched fingers, kings meditating on lotus thrones. Dust rises beneath your feet, but it is not just dust. It is the memory of 1,000 lives waiting to be remembered. Above you, the towers of Angkor Wat still reach for the sky, their silhouettes like lotus buds against a night sky too heavy to be real. Bats flutter silently beneath the corbelled arches. The stones are warm, as if they remember the hands that laid them there one by one under the watchful eyes of gods who no longer speak. You are not here as a tourist, not even as a ghost. You are a dreamer drifting into a world that once believed its power would last forever. A city that beat with the heart of an empire. A place where monks whispered sutras beneath palm leaves, where kings walked among shadows, and where elephants trembled before going to war. But empires fall. And tonight we begin the long, gentle unraveling of one of the greatest. Let the world grow quiet around you. Let the candles burn low. Let Angkor whisper its secrets to you. And now let's begin. You wake slowly, not from sleep, but from something softer, like the way light rises through fog. The air around you is still cool, touched with the damp breath of water lilies and wet stone. The sky is the color of pearl. Just before dawn cracks it open. You are standing at the edge of the moat. It stretches out before you like a mirror to another world, wide, still, impossibly calm. The surface reflects not just the towers of Angkor Wat in silhouette, but the darkness itself, a darkness that is not frightening, only vast. A thin mist hovers above the water, hiding the details, softening the shapes, as if history itself does not want to be seen all at once. The bridge beneath your feet is made of laterite and sandstone, worn smooth by the passing of time and pilgrims. Each stone holds the memory of 1,000 footsteps. Yours now joins them. There is a hush here, but it is not silence. It is more like listening, as if the world is holding its breath, waiting for something you cannot yet name. On either side of the causeway, the balustrades are carved with Naga's 7-headed serpents that twist and coil in eternal watchfulness. Their faces are chipped. Lichen blooms like old memories across their backs. But they are still here after all these centuries, holding the threshold between the world of men and the world of gods. You look up. The towers of Angkor Wat rise ahead of you, cut sharp against the fading stars. 5 stone fingers reaching toward the heavens, shaped like lotus buds. Their symmetry is precise, but something about them feels ancient and alive, not sacred in the way of temples you've known, but sentient. As if the stones themselves remember. A faint breeze brushes past your cheek. It smells of river mud, jasmine, and thyme. Somewhere far behind you a bird cries out once then again, and in that sound something stirs in you, a sense that this place was never truly forgotten, only sleeping. You begin to walk. Your bare feet touch the warm stone of the bridge, and the chill of morning slips beneath your skin. With each step, the world grows quieter, as if even your thoughts know to bow here. Across the water, the reflection of the temple trembles slightly, not from your movement but from the turning of the earth. On the far bank, palms rise like watchful guardians. Their fronds rustle gently, a soft percussion to the melody of waking light. Somewhere among them, monks begin to chant a low, almost inaudible hum, like the voice of the forest remembering its lines. You cannot make out the words, but they are not meant to be understood, only felt. You pause just before the gates. They are massive, carved with dancing apsaras and lion-headed guardians. The doors are open, but no one stands there. No guards, no pilgrims, only the wind. And yet you feel as if you are being watched. Not with suspicion, but with a deep, curious kindness. As though the temple is wondering who you are and why you have come. You cross the threshold, and the scent of stone enfolds you. It is a cool scent, mineral and ancient, touched with the faint aroma of old incense and rain-soaked earth. Inside the outer wall, the world narrows. Galleries line your path, their ceilings low, their walls alive with carvings. Warriors march across battlefields. Celestial beings float above clouds. Entire worlds unfold in shallow relief kingdoms held within stone. Your fingers brush the carvings. You feel the grooves where a sculptor's chisel once danced. The stone is cold but not dead. It pulses quietly like a memory that still breathes beneath your skin. A gecko scurries across a pillar. Your eyes follow its movement, and for a moment you forget where you are. Because this place, this temple, is not just architecture, it is not just history, it is presence. Even in its solitude it is awake, watching, waiting. The sun begins to rise. At first just a whisper of gold at the edges of the sky. Then the light spills over the trees, touches the tops of the towers, and turns the stone to honey. Shadows stretch and shrink along the walls. The bas-reliefs come alive, their faces illuminated, their stories unfolding again beneath the gentle fingers of morning. You stand in the middle of it all, not as a visitor, not as a scholar, but as something smaller, a breath, a witness, a silence inside a silence. And as the first birds of the morning begin to sing, as the world tilts gently toward day, you feel something settle within you. Not peace exactly, but stillness, a kind of stillness that feels like remembering. You have not even reached the heart of Angkor yet, but already it is beginning to change you. And the moat behind you, once a mirror to another world, now feels like a threshold you've crossed and cannot uncross. The corridor narrows and the light softens. You walk quietly, your fingers trailing the walls where the stone grows cool again in the absence of sun. The temple stretches inward now, not just upward, into shadow, into silence. You follow the flickering outline of a doorway, its frame carved with curling leaves and script you cannot read. Beyond it lies a chamber, small, square, lined with columns and darkened by time. And there beneath the low arch of stone sits a boy. He does not see you at first. He is seated cross-legged on the ground, hunched slightly over a long palm-leaf manuscript, a stylus in hand. A faint line of soot-darkened light trickles in through a slit high in the wall, falling across his shaved head and the slope of one shoulder. His robe is the color of faded marigold, worn thin, frayed at the edges, but clean, reverent. You stop at the threshold, not wanting to intrude. The boy writes slowly, carefully, tracing letters with the focus of someone who knows they will last longer than he will. You hear the faint scratch of metal on leaf, the pause as he inhales, the momentary tremble of fingers too small to carry the weight of words meant for eternity. Around him lie stacks of bundled texts, each bound with braided string, their edges browned by smoke, by weather, by years. You watch as he stops, blinks, and looks up. For a second his eyes meet yours. They are dark, wide, unafraid. He does not speak, but he does not ask you to leave. Instead he gestures gently toward a stone bench beneath one of the narrow windows. You sit as quietly as you can, and he returns to his task. The air smells of old paper, beeswax, and sandalwood. It is warmer here than in the outer chambers, as if the breath of those who came before has lingered, refusing to disperse. The boy dips his stylus into a small cup of ink and continues. His movements are deliberate, almost meditative. You realize he is not copying the texts, he is memorizing them, line by line. The writing is part of the remembering. A soft breeze slips through the slit above, stirring the threads of incense smoke coiled lazily in the air. Outside you can still faintly hear the bird song and the far-off hum of morning prayers. But in this room there is only the sound of writing. The boy stops again. He shifts, stretching his legs. You notice a thin scar along the side of one foot, a burn perhaps, or something older. He reaches for a dried lotus pod on the floor beside him, holds it between his palms, then places it atop the finished text, a kind of offering, a kind of closure. He looks at you once more. "Would you like to see it?" he asks in a voice as soft as the dust on the stone. You nod, unsure whether he truly expects you to understand. He hands you the leaf-thin, delicate each line etched with patience. The letters are precise, rhythmic, like chants carved into silence. You do not recognize the language, but the shape of it moves you. You run your fingers just above the surface, not touching, as if the meaning might rise through your skin. "It's from the Dhammapada," the boy whispers, "the path of truth." You glance up at him. His eyes are steady, not proud, only present. He tells you the verse slowly, as if tasting it, something about the mind, about how a trained mind brings happiness like a shadow that never leaves. His voice is high but calm. It does not echo in the stone room. It simply stays curling between the text and the light. "Master Sothik says the mind is like a monkey at first," he adds, smiling faintly, "always jumping. But when it sits still, you can hear everything." You imagine the boy rising in the dark each morning, sweeping this tiny library, clean, lighting incense, sitting for hours as the world outside forgets he exists. But he does not seem forgotten. He seems lit from within by something very old. He leans back against a pillar. "My father carved elephants," he says after a moment. "He thought I'd do the same. But when the war started—" He stops. His hands tighten around the edge of the manuscript. "He told me to come here. He said the words would survive longer than stone." You say nothing, because there is nothing to say. The silence returns, but now it is not empty. It is full of things not spoken, of stories half finished, of futures that may never unfold. The boy breathes in slowly, then gathers the scattered texts, stacking them with care. He places a thin cloth over them and rests his palms on top, as if closing a door that only he knows how to open. "I'm not supposed to talk to visitors," he says gently. "But you don't feel like a visitor." You smile, or perhaps you only imagine that you do. Outside, the light has changed again. The edge of morning has passed, and the sun now spills deeper into the temple, casting the chamber in a soft amber glow. The boy stands, bows slightly toward the shrine in the corner, then toward you. "I have to go now," he says, "before Master Sothik scolds me." He turns, slips into the corridor like a shadow folding into itself. His footsteps make no sound. You remain seated for a while longer, letting the quiet sink into your bones. The palm leaf still rests beside you. You do not take it. It does not belong to you, but its words or the feeling of them linger. And as you rise and step out of the library, you realize something has shifted. The temple is no longer a ruin. It is a memory you have entered, and now carry. The sound of chanting grows louder as you walk back into the sun, but even beneath it you can still hear the scratch of the stylus, the whisper of a boy copying truth onto leaves that may outlive kings. And far behind you, in the room of stone and smoke, the silence writes itself into history. The path curves and the temple breathes wider. You step from shadow into a space flooded with morning light. The hush of stone gives way to the murmur of breeze through leaves, the hush of water slipping through carved channels. You are no longer within walls. You are in a garden, not wild, but not quite tamed. A quiet kingdom between the sacred and the secret. The grass beneath your feet is soft and wet with dew. Tiny pink flowers open lazily along the edge of the path, their petals glistening like sugar. Mango trees lean toward each other in the warm air, their branches heavy with fruit not yet ripe. Above them, frangipani blossoms drift down in slow spirals, their scent sweet and sleepy. The sun has risen higher now. Its light stretches across the reflecting pools, casting the sky twice, once above, once below. Water striders skate across the surface in delicate zigzags, breaking the stillness only briefly. Somewhere nearby, a peacock lets out a call. It echoes through the trees, proud and strange, like a forgotten trumpet in a royal procession. This is not a public place. You feel that immediately. The walls are lower here, more ornamental than defensive. The stones are lighter in color, trimmed with vines and flowering shrubs. The windows are wider, open to the air. And in the center of it all is a terrace, not large but elegant, draped in silk banners that stir gently in the breeze. There are no guards, no formal gates, only presence. You walk closer. The terrace is raised just enough to offer a view of the lotus pond, the temple towers beyond, and the distant green line of jungle that waits like a dream outside the world. Pillows are scattered across the stone floor, and trays of fresh fruit rest untouched: mangosteens, bananas, and jackfruit peeled open like golden flowers. And then you see them. Figures in soft robes, their backs to you, seated in loose circles. Young women, perhaps attendants, perhaps nobles, their hair coiled in careful knots, their arms wrapped in gold bangles that glint with each small movement. They speak in quiet tones, laughter slipping between them like wind through silk. One of them turns slightly, and for a moment her face catches the light. She is not beautiful in the way statues are. She is beautiful in the way memory is imperfect, fleeting, soft around the edges. To her side, musicians sit cross-legged with wooden instruments in their laps. A soft melody rises, a bamboo flute, slow and circular, as if chasing its own echo. The rhythm is gentle coaxing, made of pauses more than notes. It folds into the morning like a thread into silk. And there, at the heart of it all, sits the queen. You know her even before you truly see her. Not because of her jewels, though they are many, nor because of her posture, which is poised yet relaxed. You know her by the space she creates, by the way the others orient themselves around her without effort or instruction. She holds a small bird in her hands, a myna perhaps, and speaks to it as one might to a child. Her voice is soft, lilting, edged with something ancient. A servant approaches her with a tray of lotus petals soaked in chilled water. She smiles, dips her fingers into the bowl, and presses the coolness to her brow. For a moment she closes her eyes. You see in her face something deeper than rest, something like waiting, like watching the sky for rain that no longer comes. She opens her eyes and looks in your direction. You are not certain if she sees you or simply senses something, a movement of the air, the breath of time folding in on itself. But her gaze lingers, not suspicious, not startled, just present. Then she turns back to the bird in her hand. One of the girls begins to dance. She rises slowly, each gesture precise, as though unfolding a story with her body. Her fingers move like waves, her steps are light, almost invisible on the stone. You do not know the tale, but you feel it. The way the sky grows quiet, the way the garden seems to lean in. The queen watches, her hands now resting in her lap. Somewhere deeper in the palace, a bell tolls soft and distant. A servant appears, whispers something, and the queen nods once. The musicians lower their instruments. The dancers pause. A change comes over the air. It is not fear nor urgency, just a shift, the kind that means a meeting, a message, a decision waiting to be made. She stands. Her robe falls around her like a curtain of silk, embroidered with lotus threads and moonlight. She moves not like royalty, but like someone born within the rhythm of the earth. As she walks, those around her rise in silence. No words, only motion. And then she is gone, back into the corridors behind the garden. The silks rustle. The bird is left behind, still perched on its golden stand, blinking at the light as if nothing has changed. You remain where you are. The garden is quieter now. The music has stopped. But the flowers still bloom. The water still reflects the sky, and the sun continues its slow climb above the temple's towers. Nothing has broken, and yet something has begun to fade. This was not just a moment of rest. It was the last flowering of something already wilting. The queen's smile, the dancing girls, the fruit untouched. They are petals floating on a pond that no longer feeds its roots. And as you turn to leave the garden, you do not look back, because some beauty is meant to vanish as you step away, not because it was never real, but because it was too real to stay. The garden fades behind you, replaced once more by corridors of shadow and sun. You move through arched passageways where time seems slower, the air thicker. Each turn feels older, more uncertain. The silence grows deeper. Then voices, not the chants of monks or the quiet chatter of court attendants, but voices with an edge, formal, guarded, speaking in tones that weigh each syllable as if it might tip the balance of something fragile. You follow the sound. It leads you to a shaded gallery open on one side to a small courtyard. The floor is swept clean, and a few simple mats lie in rows. At the far end stands a tall figure, his back straight, his robe cut differently from those worn in Angkor. The fabric is darker, stiffer. His shoulders carry armor not meant for war but for presence, authority. He does not bow. This is the visitor. He comes from Ayutthaya. The name hangs in the air like incense that refuses to dissipate. You have not heard it spoken yet, but you feel it. In the wary stares of the guards, in the tightened expressions of the court scribes, in the way no one speaks above a hush. He waits. Beside him 2 aides hold a scroll wrapped in red silk. The seal is unbroken. A third stands farther back, eyes scanning the carved walls with something between reverence and calculation. From the opposite side, the royal advisor approaches. His robes are old gold trimmed with threads the color of rice husks. His hair is white, bound in a knot. His face is lined not just with age, but with worry etched carefully over decades. He greets the visitor with a bow, deep but not submissive, polite, watchful. The visitor returns it with only a nod. You watch from the edge of a column invisible to them all. The moment feels balanced on the edge of something unseen. A single word might change the shape of what follows. But no one rushes. The scroll is handed over. The advisor accepts it with both hands, holds it before him, and turns toward the inner temple. He does not open it here. Not yet. Instead, he speaks. His Majesty will receive your message after the noonday meal. He says, his voice calm. You are welcome to rest, or walk among the grounds. The visitor smiles. It is not a warm smile. It is generous, he says, to delay the reading of a letter that carries the weight of peace. The advisor does not react. He bows again and steps back, his face unreadable. The visitor turns slowly and walks toward the lotus pond beyond the gallery. His aides follow their feet, silent on the stone. You watch as they pass beneath the carved lintel, their silhouettes swallowed by sunlight. But even after they're gone, the air stays tense, as if a storm has arrived without wind or rain. You remain still. Something about the man's presence lingers, not just the smell of foreign oil clinging to his robes, nor the sharp lines of his boots against the soft paths of the garden. It is something else, a kind of knowing, a calculation. He did not come as a pilgrim, nor as a friend. You step through the gallery and into the outer corridor. Monks pass you in the opposite direction, their robes rustling softly. One of them glances toward the garden, then looks away quickly. Even the monks feel it, something shifting beneath the surface of the temple. You find the visitor again near the elephant terrace. He is alone now, standing with his arms behind his back, looking toward the horizon. The jungle breathes in the distance, a green wall that seems closer than it truly is. He does not move as you approach, but he speaks. This place is dying, he says. His voice is low, not cruel, just certain. You don't answer, you don't even breathe. He continues. The stones are beautiful, but beauty cannot hold borders, or feed cities, or silence hunger. I've seen your roads, your fields. They were full once. Now they are tired. He turns his head slightly. Not enough to see you, just enough to let you know he senses you. We offered trade, he says, but that is not what your king wants. He wants respect, old gods and old names. He forgets how new the world has become. You still say nothing, because it is not your place to argue, and because some truths, even when spoken softly, strike like thunder. A long silence follows. Birds chirp from the fig trees nearby. A gardener brushes fallen petals from the stone with a palm broom. The visitor watches the movements as if memorizing them. Then he sighs. I have 3 daughters, he says. One of them dances like your apsaras. Her teacher was born here, you know, before she fled north. He says it gently, almost sadly. Then he turns and walks away, his footsteps careful, deliberate. You remain by the terrace long after he is gone. The sunlight has shifted. The shadows stretch longer now, slanting across the stone like fingers trying to hold something that keeps slipping away. The breeze is still warm, but it carries a new scent. Drier, more distant, less forgiving. You don't know what was written in the letter, but you know what it meant. And somewhere inside the temple, behind carved doors and folded silks, a king now holds words that could redraw the shape of his world, or end it. The visitor came not to threaten. He came to remind that while gods sleep in temples, men build empires with ink and steel. And as you return through the corridor, past the monks, past the whispering leaves, you carry the echo of his words like a weight in your chest. This place is dying, and no one, not even the queen, not even the boy in the library, has yet found the breath to answer. The light has changed again. It is not the soft, golden wash of early morning, nor the harsh white blaze of noon. It is something strange, dimmer grayer, tinged with a color that does not belong to any hour. The shadows deepen suddenly, and the warmth drains from the stone beneath your feet. You are standing in one of the inner courtyards now. Open sky above, 4 towers surrounding you, and yet the sky does not feel open. It feels veiled. At first you think a storm is coming. The monks around you look up from their sweeping, their chanting, their quiet labor. Some squint, others shield their eyes. But there are no clouds, no wind. Only this odd spreading dimness, like a great hand placed gently over the sun. A temple bell rings, though no one has struck it. You look up, and you see it. A circle of darkness slowly devouring the sun. A black disk swallowing the light, casting a pale ring around itself like a burning eye closed halfway. The air grows still. Birds fall silent. Even the insects hush their constant hum. The world pauses. A solar eclipse. But to you and to them it is not science. It is not timing or shadow or celestial pattern. It is an omen. A gasp ripples through the courtyard. Somewhere beyond the temple walls a child begins to cry. A dog howls once, then stops. You hear hurried footsteps on stone sandals, slapping beads, clinking breaths caught between fear and confusion. One of the novice monks drops his alms bowl, and the sound of its spinning echoes longer than it should. Then the chanting begins. But it is not the usual steady rhythm of morning prayers. It is louder, urgent, a wave of voices rising in unison, as if to call the sun back. The elders lead their deep tones, anchoring the younger monks. The words are familiar verses from the Sutta Nipata protective chants, but now they carry a different weight, a plea. You look at their faces. Even the oldest among them, men who have seen lifetimes carved into the grain of their skin, look unsettled. Their lips move, their eyes fixed upward. One of them clutches a strand of black beads so tightly his knuckles whiten. Another murmurs the chant through trembling breath. The queen arrives, flanked by attendants, her eyes raised to the heavens. She does not speak. Her robe billows faintly in the motionless air. A servant kneels at her feet, holding a brass bowl filled with lotus petals and salt. A ritual, perhaps, an offering. You watch as she lifts a single petal and lets it fall. It drifts slowly, hesitates, and lands without a sound. No wind to carry it, no answer from the sky. The palace astrologer steps forward. His robe is marked with old ink stains, his scroll case worn at the edges. He bows deeply but does not look the queen in the eye. He speaks quickly in hushed tones. You catch fragments. Rare alignment. Portent of change. Danger if unheeded. The queen listens unmoving. Then she nods once and turns away. Her expression is unreadable, not fear, not denial, just something resigned. As she departs, a new sound rises. Drums, soft, slow at first, like a heartbeat emerging from deep earth. Then louder, faster, not ceremonial, not celebratory. It is the drumbeat of warning. The guards have taken positions along the corridors. Not running, not shouting, but ready. One by one you see them glance upwards, then back at each other, waiting for orders that have not yet been spoken. You follow the sound, toward the outer gate where a crowd has begun to gather. Merchants, travelers, temple workers. They have paused in their steps, their carts, their sweeping, to stare skyward in uneasy silence. Some kneel. Some clutch small charms around their necks, bones, beads, bits of copper etched with mantras. One woman hums softly to herself over and over as if to drown out her own thoughts. And in the midst of them all, a boy not more than 10 begins to scream. Not in pain, in terror. He points upward, his face twisted in a mask of dread, and cries out a single word again and again. Naga! You look up once more, and for a moment you see what he sees. A shadow curling at the edge of the sun's dying light. Not a dragon, not a serpent, but the idea of one. Ancient, massive, coiled around the very fire of the heavens, devouring it. A celestial Naga. A sign that balance has been broken, that the gods are displeased. The chanting intensifies. So does the drumming. You feel it in your chest now, not fear exactly, but something more primal. A disturbance in the rhythm of things, like a thread pulled too tight in the loom of the world. You step back from the crowd into the covered walkway where the carved bas-reliefs stretch for hundreds of feet. The stone figures seem to move differently now in the dim light. The battles they depict look less like stories, more like warnings. Demons with wide eyes, warriors falling beneath the weight of unseen forces. The eclipse reaches its peak, and in that moment the world is dark, truly dark. The kind of darkness that feels complete. Not night, not shadow, but absence. As if the sun had never existed. As if time had closed its eyes. Everything stops. No sound, no wind. Just the stillness of a world holding its breath. And then slowly the light begins to return. First a glow, then a sliver. Then a golden edge spreading across the courtyard floor like spilled oil. Faces turn upward again, blinking. The drums fade, the chants quiet. The child's cries dissolve into sniffles. The silence breaks not with a roar, but with a sigh. The sun returns. But something has changed. It is not the same sun, and this is not the same Angkor. The queen is gone. The astrologer, too. The guards disperse silently, and the crowd drifts apart like mist burning away in morning heat. You are left standing alone among the stone beneath a sky that still feels bruised. You look down at your hands. They are shaking just slightly. You breathe deeply, because even though you knew it was only an eclipse, you felt it, the breath of history shifting, the whisper of gods you do not name. And somewhere beyond the trees, beyond the horizon, someone else is watching this sky and making plans. Because omens do not speak, they beckon. The next morning begins not with bird song, but with the low, distant tremble of hooves. You feel it before you hear it. A vibration in the stone floor beneath your feet, like a pulse beneath the skin of the earth. Subtle at first, then stronger, rhythmic, steady and deep. The sound of weight, the sound of movement, the sound of something ancient returning to life. You follow the echo toward the great eastern gate. The air is still cool, but already the dust hangs thick in the windless morning. The trees lean quietly over the path, their branches trembling as if they remember what comes next. Monks have lined the walls silent, motionless, their eyes cast downward. They do not chant, they do not bow, they only watch. And then you see them. One by one the elephants appear from behind the archway. Enormous, armored, solemn. Their steps slow, deliberate, impossibly heavy, yet graceful in a way that seems practiced, as if they know they carry not just soldiers, but the weight of history. Their tusks are polished, their eyes dark and unreadable. Atop the lead elephant sits a general in full ceremonial armor. Gold plates catch the morning light, but the metal looks worn, not decorative. His face is hard, his jaw clenched, his gaze fixed ahead. Behind him dozens of others follow, war elephants draped in crimson and black, their riders upright, spears raised not in defiance but in ritual. This is no parade. This is departure. The king is sending them east. You don't know which border is threatened. Perhaps Ayutthaya. Perhaps the Highland rebellions. Perhaps it doesn't matter. What matters is that this theater of movement and silence and dust is happening now, and it hasn't happened in years. You step aside as the elephants pass. Each one brings with it a different echo, the clatter of armor, the creak of leather saddles, the clink of chainmail, the breath of animals trained for war. Beneath them, the ground has been packed and repacked, flattened by centuries of similar marches, but it still feels fragile, like skin stretched too tight over bone. A child runs to the edge of the road, her arms full of lotus flowers. She tries to offer one to the passing column, but no one takes it. The flowers fall to the dust unnoticed, and she watches silently as they are crushed beneath the heavy feet of beasts bred to kill. You move alongside the march, weaving between onlookers and soldiers. Women press small bundles of herbs and charms into the hands of departing sons. Elders clasp their palms and murmur blessings into the wind. A group of younger men, newly enlisted, walk barefoot behind the elephants, their faces too calm, their eyes too bright. They have not yet seen what waits at the end of the road. At the head of the column, musicians walk barefoot, playing drums and long horns carved from buffalo bone. The rhythm is slow, solemn, relentless, not meant to inspire, but to prepare. Each beat is a step away from home. And there in the center rides the prince. He is younger than you expected. His armor is polished, yes, but his posture betrays uncertainty. His hand rests on the hilt of his blade fingers, tightening and loosening in small, restless movements. He scans the crowd, not looking for threats, but for someone, a face perhaps, a farewell he never received. A monk steps forward. He carries a bowl of water and a small lotus leaf. The procession pauses. A servant lifts the leaf, the monk pours the water, and the prince washes his hands in midair, a gesture of purification, of protection, of hope. The water falls to the earth and vanishes. The prince nods once. The march resumes. You fall behind, watching the backs of the elephants disappear into the golden haze. The drums fade. The dust lingers. All that remains are the footprints pressed deep into the earth, wide, heavy, impossible to ignore. And then silence. The crowd begins to disperse, not quickly, not with relief, but slowly, as if unsure how to return to a world that now feels emptier. The monks return to their cloisters. The soldiers remaining behind retighten their spears in racks. A young boy picks up the crushed lotus flowers and carries them away with care. You remain. At the edge of the road, you crouch beside one of the larger footprints. It is filled with water from yesterday's ritual or this morning's dew. The reflection inside it shows a sky too pale for morning and too bright for comfort. And in that moment you understand. This was not just the beginning of a campaign. It was the beginning of absence, of rooms left quiet, of songs no longer sung, of laughter stored away for another season. The city has given its sons again to the unknown, and the earth, always patient, always listening, has taken their weight into its memory. You rise, walk back through the temple gates. The guards have returned to their posts, but their faces are changed. The queen's pavilion is empty, now the silk's taken down. Somewhere the boy in the library still writes, but perhaps today his hand is slower. Perhaps he too heard the drums and paused. You pass the statue of Vishnu carved into the stone wall near the western gallery. His face is serene, his arms many, but his eyes, smooth, blank, eternal, watch nothing now, or everything. You wonder if he feels the emptiness growing in the corridors, if the gods of Angkor know how fragile even stone can be. Above you the towers reach skyward, but they do not shine. The sun is warm but distant, and beneath your feet the ground still trembles, faint, receding, like a heartbeat marching farther and farther away. The sun climbs higher, but the light no longer feels warm. It spills across the stones in long, sharp angles, too bright in some places, swallowed whole in others. Shadows stretch unnaturally beneath the eaves, and the air hangs still. Not heavy, just expectant, as if the temple is waiting for something to return, or perhaps realizing that something never will. You take the narrow path west, where the grass creeps back through cracks in the pavement, and vines curl softly around the base of once polished columns. The way is not blocked, just forgotten. The noises of the palace are gone now. No drums, no chants, no footsteps. Even the birds are quieter here, their calls echoing off the stone like questions without answers. You pass beneath a crumbling gate where time has worn the lion faces smooth. One still bears teeth, the other only a hollow where a snarl used to be. And then it appears. The abandoned temple. Not hidden, not sealed, simply left alone. Its tower leans slightly to one side, as if bowing from the weight of silence. Weeds bloom in the joints between sandstone blocks. Ferns cradle the steps. A curtain of roots thin as threads hangs across the entrance like the remnants of a forgotten veil. You pause at the threshold. The smell is different here, older, damper, full of dust and something else. The faint scent of oil and soot, the residue of a flame that has long since gone out. You step inside. The chamber is dim. The air cools instantly, wrapping around you like a shadow that remembers your shape. Small alcoves line the inner wall, each one empty. Where statues once stood, there are only bases. Where candles once flickered, only blackened stains remain. At the far end, a great pedestal still rises square broad, chiseled with lines so fine they feel almost accidental. Above it, a hollow niche. You imagine what was once there, a Buddha seated in meditation, or perhaps a deity with many arms, each gesture a symbol. But now there is only space. You move slowly. Your footsteps stir the dust, but the dust does not rise. It clings to the ground as if rooted. You brush your fingers along the carved lintels, reading their patterns with your skin. Curves, leaves, apsaras in mid-dance, their faces still visible in patches, gazing eternally at a sky that no longer notices them. A bird flutters above, startling you. Its wings beat against the cracked ceiling before it disappears through a hole in the roof. A single feather drifts down, landing beside a broken candle base. Someone once prayed here. Not hundreds, not crowds, just one or two at a time. Perhaps a monk who lit incense every morning. Perhaps a queen who whispered secrets no one else could hold. The kind of prayers meant not for gods, but for memory, for presence. You sit on the cool stone bench beneath the main window. Outside, a tree leans against the wall. Its trunk is twisted as if grown in response to silence. A vine curls in through a missing brick, tracing lazy loops across the floor. You follow it with your eyes as it wraps around a fallen tile, then disappears into the cracks. And suddenly you realize this place is not lifeless. It has simply changed tenants. Where worship once filled the air, now moss thrives. Where song once echoed, now frogs nest in shadowed corners. And the vines, patient and unhurried, have begun their own quiet renovation. Not to destroy, just to reclaim. You rise, step deeper into the sanctuary. There is a narrow stairway at the back, half collapsed, leading upward into darkness. You hesitate, then you climb. Each step is uneven, slick with lichen. The air grows cooler as you ascend, the walls tighter. At the top you reach a small chamber. It smells of rain and bat droppings, but the view when you push open the narrow wooden shutter is clear. From here you see Angkor from a new angle. The great towers rise in the distance. The moat glimmers like glass. The gardens lie still, peaceful and pale. But around the edges, at the very rim of sight, you see where the jungle begins to lean forward, as if listening, as if inching closer, branch by branch. The city is still standing, but you can feel the balance shifting. You imagine the boy from the library walking past this temple every morning, never stopping. The queen perhaps once lighting a single candle here before dawn. The prince as a child hiding in its corners, tracing symbols into the dust. Lives folded into this place like pages of a book left out in the rain. You close the shutter, descend again. At the altar you kneel, not to pray, not to ask, but simply to be still. To let the silence return through your lungs. To listen to what the temple remembers. And it does remember, not in voices, not in visions, but in a kind of presence. A breath that does not belong to you. A chill that is not unfriendly. You place your hand on the stone pedestal. It is warm, faintly, as if it has held too many hands to forget the shape of one more. When you rise, you leave nothing behind. No offering, no candle, no words. Only your shadow lingering for a moment before slipping back into the dust. Outside, the vines shift in the breeze. The temple watches you go, not with eyes, but with the quiet dignity of a place that no longer expects anything. And yet it does not close itself behind you. It simply waits. You walk away, and as you do, you realize something. Angkor is not falling all at once. It is unweaving, one thread at a time, one temple, one prayer, one silence. And somewhere in the center of that unraveling, something still holds, for now. You return through the temple corridors just as the sun begins its descent. The light is softer now, not golden but bronze. It brushes against the stone like memory, not warmth. Shadows grow long again, stretching like tired limbs across courtyards and stairways. The air has changed too. Not cooler, just quieter, as if something has already ended. In the inner palace, the servants move with unusual grace. They speak little. Their footsteps are hushed. Their hands do not tremble, but they do not linger. Dishes are carried with care. Fabrics laid with precision. Doors opened, not with deference but with tenderness. The air smells of lemongrass and boiled rice, tamarind and coriander leaf. But under it all is the scent of old incense and wet stone, a reminder that even celebration cannot mask the fading. You are led not by command but by rhythm to the royal dining pavilion. It floats just above a shallow lotus pond built of teak and open to the air on three sides. Curtains ripple in the late-day breeze. Lanterns hang unlit, waiting for nightfall. A long table of dark wood stretches down the center, its surface already set glazed dishes of rice soups laced with turmeric, grilled fish wrapped in banana leaf, pickled mango with salt, bowls of crushed peanuts, sweet palm sugar and water chilled with lotus petals. There are no guests yet, only the quiet before something final. You wait at the edge of the pavilion as servants make their last preparations. A woman brushes the floor with a broom made of palm fibers. Another lights the lanterns one by one, the flames flickering briefly before catching. Their faces are composed, their gestures practiced, but their eyes, when they meet for a moment too long, betray something heavier. Then the queen arrives. She wears deep violet tonight, not mourning, not celebration, something between. Her hair is drawn back, her earrings heavy but simple. She does not look at the food, she looks at the seats, each one, as if remembering who used to fill them, as if calculating how many are missing. Behind her comes the old royal advisor, his face drawn, his steps slow. Then the Queen Mother, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze lowered. The monk from the temple joins them, his robe gathered carefully, a wooden bowl at his side. A few nobles, mostly older, follow, their voices low, their eyes scanning the horizon. But the king does not come, not yet. And neither does the prince. The queen sits at the head of the table. The others take their places without ceremony. This is not a feast. This is something else. A goodbye, perhaps. You move closer, invisible, a shadow among shadows. The dishes are served. Steam rises in gentle curls. Chopsticks clink against ceramic. The sound of pouring broth, the faint ripple of water beneath the pavilion. But no laughter. No music. Only the occasional exchange of glances. Words, when they come, are soft, practical, brief. He favored the tamarind soup, the Queen Mother murmurs, lifting her spoon. Has the rice harvest been confirmed? Asks the advisor, eyes on his bowl. The queen does not respond. A bird cries out in the trees, not a songbird, a sharp metallic sound. It passes unanswered. One of the young servants approaches with a tray of small cakes, rice flour, coconut, mung bean, and hesitates. She looks toward the empty chair beside the queen, then back at her mistress. The queen nods once. The tray is placed down, no one reaches for it, and then footsteps. Heavy, familiar. The king arrives. He does not wear his crown tonight, only a plain robe of indigo silk, the color of dusk. He does not sit immediately. He walks the length of the table, nodding to each guest, his expression unreadable. He places a hand on the monk's shoulder briefly. Then he lowers himself into the empty seat beside the queen. He eats slowly, methodically. Each bite seems measured, not in appetite but in memory, as if this meal has already happened long ago and he is simply following a script his body still remembers. He says nothing, but every gesture speaks. Of endings, of gratitude, of loss. The prince does not come. His seat remains untouched. The queen glances at it once, her lips tightening, her spoon pausing above her bowl. She does not speak either, but the space between her and that empty chair grows heavier with each passing minute. And then the monk stands. He recites a short verse in Pali, one of release, of impermanence. The syllables are clear, steady. They do not rise, they do not fall. They remain suspended in the air like prayer flags caught in still wind. When he finishes, no one applauds, no one bows. They simply sit in silence. You watch as the queen reaches into her robe and pulls out a folded cloth. Inside it is a single betel leaf, rolled tight, tucked with lime and areca nut. She places it gently in a silver bowl beside her. An offering, or a memory. It's not clear. The king finally speaks. His voice is quiet, roughened by age, or perhaps regret. Tomorrow, he says, we answer, nothing more. But the table receives his words like stone receives water, without resistance, but never unchanged. The guests begin to rise. One by one they bow. Not to the king, not to the queen, but to something larger. The moment, the memory, the gathering of those who still remain. The queen does not rise. She watches the lanterns flicker, watches the breeze move the curtains, watches the pond ripple beneath the pavilion as a single koi fish circles the shadows. You remain until the last guest is gone, until the bowls have been cleared, until the night deepens into blue and the scent of jasmine begins to float on the air again. The queen lifts a single cup to her lips, drinks. Then she too stands. The meal is over. And though the table will be set again tomorrow, next week, perhaps for others, you understand what this was. Not a meal, but a farewell. To the days when kings still believed their decisions shaped the world. To the nights when temples still lit fires in every chamber. To the quiet before surrender, when all you can do is share what warmth remains. And as you step back into the garden beneath a moon too pale to cast shadows, you feel it again. This place is beautiful. The first drop lands on your shoulder like a whisper. Not cold, not sudden. Just there, as if it had been falling forever and only now decided to touch you. You look up and the sky is no longer bronze. It is leaden, low and trembling. The clouds have gathered in silence, gray upon gray, folding over the city like a wet shroud. You take one step, and the second drop finds you, then the third, and then it begins. Not a downpour, not yet, but a rain that feels cautious at first, uncertain, as if asking permission from the earth. The stones beneath your feet darken. The dust lifts. The leaves shiver. You find yourself walking toward the temple's edge, past the garden, now faded, past the pavilions where lanterns sway in the wind, their flames blinking in confusion. Servants hurry to pull fabrics from windows. A guard rolls up a woven mat, then pauses, lifts his face to the sky and closes his eyes. The monsoon has arrived, and with it comes something older than news, older than war, the shift in the season that all of Angkor knows but never says aloud. The time when everything softens, swells, cracks, the season when even silence has weight. You pass by a statue of a horse-headed deity. Rain traces down its neck like sweat, gathering at the base, then pooling along the edge of the platform. Behind it, the jungle seems to lean closer, not invading, not threatening, just listening. The trees drink, the vines rise, the moss breathes. A novice monk runs by barefoot, his robe soaked and clinging to his legs. He carries a clay jar too large for his frame, struggling to keep its contents from spilling. Water for the shrine, perhaps, or for the queen's chamber. You're not sure. But something in his eyes, wide, determined, afraid, tells you that he too has heard what the rain is trying to say. You follow the path toward the outer rice fields, where the farmers have already begun to retreat. Their tools lie abandoned, sticking out from the soil like bones of forgotten work. A water buffalo stands still in the mud, blinking through the downpour, unbothered. A boy calls for it from the trees, his voice almost drowned by the rhythm of the rain on palm leaves. And still you walk, toward a small shrine you hadn't noticed before, tucked behind a line of old fig trees wrapped in red cloth and jasmine garlands now wilted by moisture. Someone has lit a candle there. It sputters against the wind but burns. You kneel beside it, not to pray, just to witness. A woman appears beside you silently, her face half covered by a hood. She holds a clay bowl filled with lotus seeds. She takes one, breaks it open with her nails, and places the white kernel on the wet ground. A gesture, a message, or just habit. She does not speak, but you hear her breathing slow, measured, as if sinking her lungs to the rhythm of the storm. You both sit there in the shelter of the shrine as the rain begins to harden. Now it falls with purpose. Fat drops pound the stone, the earth, the rooftops, the carved faces of sleeping gods. The moat overflows in its corners. Water cascades down the steps like offerings in reverse, from sky to stone instead of hand to altar. And with the rain come the whispers. Not voices, not words, but movement. Rumors passed from one courtyard to another. You hear them in snatches as servants pass, as monks exchange glances. The scroll has been opened. The letter from Ayutthaya has been read, and the answer has been written, but it will not be sent, because there is no one left to carry it. You stand. The woman has vanished, leaving behind only the broken lotus seed. You make your way back into the temple complex, soaked now, your robe clinging your hair heavy. No one stops you. No one even sees you. They are all somewhere else behind doors, beneath eaves, listening to the storm and waiting for something that has not yet been named. You pass by the Queen's chambers. A curtain flaps in the wind, revealing her seated by the window. Her back is straight, her hands in her lap. She watches the rain. That is all. She does not move. And for a moment she looks less like a monarch, more like a woman remembering something she cannot change. Beyond the inner walls, the sound of thunder rolls. Low, long distant. It does not crash. It does not demand. It only reminds that there are forces larger than empires, that water wears down stone not with fury but with persistence, that even gods must wait in the rain. You find shelter beneath a high colonnade, its roof leaking in narrow threads. You sit there, legs folded, the rain all around you, the stone cold at your back. The rain becomes your world. You hear it. Striking leaves, drums, rooftops, bare skin. You hear it running down carved stairways, filling forgotten wells, soaking scrolls that no longer matter. You hear it whispering to the Naga statues that line the walkways, asking them if they still remember the names of the kings they once guarded. You listen, and in the rhythm of the monsoon, something becomes clear. This is not a disaster. It is a remembering. The kind the land does once a year without fail. When all that was built must soften, and all that was buried must rise. When the stories soaked into stone are retold in ripples and runoff, and the prayers once offered in dry heat must now be carried by water. Angkor has seen this before, and it will again, but this time it feels different, because the walls are more cracked, the voices fewer, the will quieter, and as you close your eyes you see it not a collapse but a slow dissolving, one rainfall at a time, a kingdom not drowned, but washed away. The rain lasts through the night. By morning the sky is pale and bruised, a soft gray draped over the city like old silk. The stone paths are slick. Pools have formed in every crevice. The air hangs heavy with the scent of wet earth and wilted jasmine. You walk slowly through the courtyard. The grass squeaks beneath your feet. The temple walls shine in the weak light, their carvings darkened by rain, their details blurred as if the stories they hold are beginning to forget themselves. Then you hear it, a door creaking, soft footsteps, fabric brushing against stone. You follow, past the eastern gallery, down a narrow corridor lined with crumbling apsaras into a private garden few remember. The trees here are low and bent, their trunks twisted by age and water. A single stone bench sits beneath a fig tree, its roots folded around the base like arms. And there she is, the queen, alone. She wears no jewelry now, no crown, no adornment. Only a simple robe the color of river clay, damp at the hem, her feet bare on the moss-covered stone. Her hair is unbound, trailing down her back like a dark veil. She stands with one hand resting on the fig tree's trunk as if listening for something deep inside it. You stay at a distance. She does not see you. Or if she does, she does not acknowledge it. Her face is turned toward the inner pond, a small basin of rainwater ringed with lotus leaves. The water is still, the reflection unclear, but she gazes at it as if seeing something more than herself. A servant approaches quietly, holding a folded bundle wrapped in gold-threaded cloth. The queen turns, nods once, and accepts it. She does not open it. She holds it against her chest, her fingers gripping the edges like something she doesn't want to lose. Then she speaks, softly. Everything is too loud, she says, even the silence. Her voice does not tremble. It has not lost its strength. But there is weariness in it, the kind that comes not from battle, but from standing still too long, while everything else slips away. I remember when this garden bloomed, she says, when the air smelled of ripe mango and the children played by the pond. The monks would chant under the trees, and the scent of incense would carry all the way to the towers. She steps away from the fig tree, walking slowly toward the pond's edge. They say the Naga has awakened, that the sun's eclipse was a warning, that the rains came too early, that the prince is too proud, that the king is too tired. She kneels. The cloth bundle rests in her lap now. They say many things, she murmurs, but they do not say what we must give up. Her fingers begin to unfold the bundle. Inside, layer by layer, are letters, small, tightly rolled scrolls tied with thread. Dozens of them. Some still sealed, others worn at the edges, stained with oil with time. She picks one up, turns it over in her hands, and sets it into the pond. It floats briefly, then sinks. She releases another, and another, each scroll once written with care now released with the gentleness of grief. Her hands do not shake, her breath does not falter. Only her eyes, they stay on the water, watching the ripples fade, as if trying to see what lies beneath. You realize they are letters never sent. Perhaps to the prince. Perhaps to no one. Perhaps to versions of herself she no longer recognizes. She speaks again, barely audible over the breeze. I wrote these every full moon, she says. When he was a child. When he first rode a horse. When he took his vows at the monastery. When he left. She places the last scroll into the water, and this one for a moment does not sink. It drifts toward a lotus leaf, catches on its edge, and lingers. The queen stares at it, and for a breath, just one, she lets herself be someone else. Not sovereign, not consort, just a mother. Then, with the gentlest motion, she reaches out and tips the leaf. The scroll slides into the water and disappears. She rises, wipes her hands on the cloth. She does not cry. You think perhaps she has already done that in other chambers on other nights, when no one could see, when the palace was quiet and the stars offered no answers. She turns to leave her robe dragging softly against the moss. At the edge of the garden she stops and looks up at the tower, the central spire of Angkor Wat, still defiant, still rising. Then she bows her head, not in prayer, not in surrender, just in acknowledgement of what was, of what is, of what will never be again. You remain by the pond. The water has stilled once more. A few scrolls float near the edges, tangled in roots caught on petals. But most are gone, sinking slowly into the silt, becoming part of the earth, the memory, the forgetting. The rain begins again. Light this time, more like mist. It dapples the surface of the pond, softens the edges of the garden, makes the trees shimmer. And in that lightness, that hush, you feel something lift. Not hope, but relief. That she let go. That someone at least still remembers how. The rain fades by afternoon, but the clouds remain. You walk beneath them, your feet finding their way through pools of water that reflect a world slowly unraveling. The temple complex is quieter than usual, and what little sound there is, a cough, a sweep of a broom, the rustle of a wet banner in the breeze, feels like it belongs to a different city. One where people have already begun to leave, even if their bodies are still here. You take the southern corridor where the oldest shrines are, a part of the complex no longer swept, where vines grow thicker, where bats nest in the beams above, where no offerings have been placed in years. You know this place, not because you've been here, but because every city has its forgotten corner, the edge of memory, the place people stop speaking of long before they stop visiting. You step carefully. The floor is uneven, cracked, lined with patches of green mold. Water drips from unseen cracks above, striking the stone in slow, steady beats. And ahead of you, beyond the colonnade, lies the Hall of Statues. Once it was sacred. Now it feels like something else. You cross the threshold. Rows of alcoves line the chamber, each one meant to house a deity, bodhisattvas, protectors, dancers, saints. But most of them are empty now. The pedestals remain moss-covered and chipped, the carved names below them worn thin by time. Of those that remain, many are broken. Some have lost limbs, some have crumbled to the waist. And many have no faces. You pause before one, a standing figure, the body still upright, hands pressed together in a gesture of devotion, but the face has been chiseled away, not by time, not by nature, deliberately, roughly, a wound in stone. You move to the next, the same, and the next. Here and there one still bears its full face, serene, distant eyes cast downward. But even those feel less like survivors and more like witnesses. You imagine them watching as one by one the others were desecrated, struck down, disfigured. Not all at once, but over time, quietly. There is no sign of looting, no treasures stolen, just faces erased, like words scrubbed from a tablet, like prayers unsaid. You kneel before one of the broken statues. A hand remains, just a hand resting on a thigh. The stone is smooth from centuries of touch. You wonder how many people once came here to place their fingers where yours are now, to ask, to thank, to confess. You do not pray, but you do listen. The silence here is not empty. It breathes. It remembers. You hear it in the walls, in the tiny cracks that spider across the columns and the dark spaces between the statues, in the air itself, which feels thick with dust and memory. A monk enters. You didn't hear his approach. He carries a small clay lamp, its flame protected by a curved glass dome. He doesn't look at you, doesn't seem surprised you are here. He walks slowly down the line of statues, pausing at each one, lighting incense, whispering a verse. When he reaches the faceless ones, he does not hesitate. He bows all the same. He lights incense all the same. You watch as he kneels before one, the largest in the room, missing its head entirely, and places the lamp at its feet. The glow flickers against the broken stone. For a moment it casts a shadow where the face used to be. A shape. A memory. A ghost. Then the light shifts and it's gone. The monk turns to leave. He nods at you barely, then disappears into the shadows. You remain. You move toward the altar at the far end of the room, a low platform wide enough to sit, once gilded, now bare. Two guardian lions stand on either side, one missing an ear, the other half swallowed by creeping vines. Between them lies a bundle of old cloth soaked from the leak in the ceiling. You pull it aside gently. Underneath is another statue, small, intact. A Buddha, perhaps no more than a foot tall. His face is still there. Serene, soft, not idealized, just human. You lift him, cradling the weight carefully. The stone is warm, not from sun but from memory. You place him back on the altar, brush away a few fallen leaves. Then you sit, and for the first time in hours you let yourself breathe. Not in fear, not in grief, just in acknowledgement. That this too is part of it. The forgetting, the breaking, the disfiguring. It does not undo what once was. You look again at the faceless statues. They do not accuse, they do not mourn. They remain. And you begin to understand. This was not done by one act, not by one hand. It was done over time, by weather, by war, by silence. By people who believed they were protecting something, by others who believed they were purging it, by generations who stopped remembering the names beneath the stone. And yet they are still here, even without faces, even without prayers. They hold space. For loss, for anger, for beauty too complicated to be kept whole. Outside, the wind picks up. The trees sigh. The first drops of evening rain begin to fall again, tapping softly on the worn roof. You stand, walk slowly between the statues, place your hand briefly on one that still holds its full form. You feel its coolness, its weight, its stillness. And for a moment you imagine that it knows. That it sees, not with eyes, not with judgment, but with the quiet that watches everything. As you step out of the hall back into the twilight, the clouds above are thick again, the sky a deep violet, the light fading. But you carry something with you now, not peace, not clarity, just the memory of faces once known, and the understanding that even broken gods remember. The night deepens, but sleep does not come. You find yourself wandering, lantern in hand, through the outer cloisters of the temple. The flame is small, its light barely enough to touch the walls, but it is enough to keep the dark at bay. The rain has paused again, leaving the world soaked and glistening. The stone gleams under the weak moonlight, slick and silver like the scales of some ancient creature coiled across the earth. The halls are empty now. Not abandoned, not quite, but emptied of presence. The monks have retreated to their cells. The queen has not been seen again. The palace guards stand at attention, but their eyes drift and their fingers tap nervously against their scabbards. You sense a thinning, a loosening, like a knot that has been tied too long, finally slipping loose, not with a snap but with a sigh. And then from somewhere deeper in the temple you hear it. A laugh. Soft, small, unmistakably a child's. It echoes once, then stops. You follow it. Down a hallway where the carvings have grown shallow from centuries of rain, through a stone arch, where fig roots hang like curtains, past a shrine where the incense has gone cold. You find him in the library, the same room where days ago, or was it only hours, a young boy copied lines onto palm leaves in golden light. But now the light comes from your lamp and the chamber is nearly empty. The texts have been moved. The floor has been swept bare. Only a few bundles remain wrapped in cloth and stacked near the wall. He sits on the floor. The same boy. Though now he is barefoot, his robe damp at the hem, and a smear of ash stains his cheek. His eyes catch the light as he looks up at you. He does not flinch. "I thought you left," he says. His voice is not accusing, just curious. You step inside. The air smells of wet parchment and old ink. The rain has found its way through a crack in the ceiling, and a bowl catches the steady drip in the corner. The sound is rhythmic, steady, a kind of slow heartbeat. "I was supposed to," he adds, looking down at the manuscript in his lap. "They told me to go north, to the other monastery. The one with the dry fields." He speaks plainly, as if explaining why one does not eat mangoes in winter. "But I didn't want to." He shrugs, "So I stayed." You kneel across from him, setting your lantern between you. He holds the manuscript toward the flame. The letters are fresh, still shining slightly from the ink. "It's not perfect," he says, "but it's almost done." You lean closer. The lines are delicate, meticulous. A verse from the Dhammapada, the same sutra he was copying when you first saw him. He brushes his hand over the page to smooth it, then places it gently on top of a small stack beside him. "I didn't know where else to put them," he murmurs. "So I've been leaving them here, in case someone needs them later." He glances toward the far wall where a clay jar sits beside a folded cloth, a bowl of dried tamarind, a stick of incense that has already burned to ash. "There's no one left to teach," he says quietly. "The old monk is gone. The novices left at dusk. Even the cat ran away. You smile. He doesn't. Do you think the temple can die? He asks suddenly. Not in fear, but as a puzzle. As if waiting to understand something that has no answer yet. You take a breath. The rain begins again, barely audible, a soft brushing across the roof tiles. The boy leans back on his hands, looking up at the ceiling. I thought if I stayed, maybe it would notice. That someone was still here. That it wasn't empty. He turns to you. But it doesn't feel like it's listening anymore. You glance around. At the carved shelves now bare. At the cold hearth in the corner. At the little stack of sutras he's left behind, each one written with hands too small for the weight they carry. He looks at them too. I thought maybe someday someone would come, a king, a pilgrim, a child, and they'd find the words, and they'd know we were here. He's not crying. But his voice grows smaller, like he's speaking not to you but to the walls, to the dust, to the silence itself. You reach out, place your hand on the bundle of manuscripts. It's still warm. He watches you, his eyes dark and wide. Then, almost too softly to hear, he says, I just didn't want it to end quietly. The rain grows heavier outside. You can hear it now. Not loud, not urgent, just persistent, like the slow unraveling of something that took centuries to weave. The boy rises, stretches his legs, and picks up one of the bundles. Will you help me move them? He asks. You nod. Together you carry them one by one to a small niche in the back wall. Not a proper shelf, not a shrine, just a dry space tucked away beneath a carved overhang. He stacks them with care, placing a small stone between each bundle to keep them from collapsing. When he finishes, he lights a stick of incense, one of the last, and places it at the base. He bows. You do too. The smoke rises. Thin, almost invisible. The rain continues. And the boy, barefoot and quiet, sits once more on the stone floor and begins a new page. You watch his hand move, slow, steady, sure. The letters take shape one after another. Outside, the jungle presses closer. The storm whispers through the trees. And inside, the only sound is the soft scratch of ink on leaf. A child alone in a temple that no longer listens. And yet he writes. Because that too is a kind of prayer, a kind of defiance, a kind of love. Morning comes slowly now. Not with glory, not with color, just with light. A pale, sallow light that seeps into the corridors and climbs the broken walls like old paint. The sun rises behind a curtain of mist, its shape blurred, its warmth diluted. The birds no longer sing as they once did. They call in short, broken tones, then fall silent again. You rise with them. The temple feels smaller today, not in size but in presence. The sounds are fewer, the movements slower. Even the wind, once sharp through the courtyards, now moves in short, tired breaths. You take the western path, a trail rarely used now, where the paving stones have been lifted by roots, where moss covers everything with a layer of soft indifference. You walk beneath an arch nearly swallowed by vines. The carvings have been smothered. What once were elephants and lions are now only ridges and hollows beneath a curtain of green. And then you see it, the jungle. Not as a wall, not as a line, but as a tide. It is no longer waiting at the edge. It is stepping forward softly, calmly, without force. A strangler fig has wrapped its arms around the outer gate. Its roots slither through the cracks like fingers through hair. Ferns grow from the very walls, feeding on centuries of dust. Bamboo rises where servants once walked, its green tips nodding as if in gentle applause. You step beyond the temple's boundary. Just slightly. The air changes. It is thicker here, sweeter. The scent of soil, wet bark, and crushed leaves floods your lungs. The sounds shift, not the chants of monks or the clang of metal, but the rustling of unseen creatures, the sudden click of insect wings, the far-off call of something large moving slowly between trees. You are in another kingdom now, not ruled by kings, not marked by borders, but alive in a way no empire ever is. You follow a trail once paved, now little more than an idea. The jungle does not resist you. It lets you pass as if curious, as if welcoming. You come to what was once a ceremonial platform. You can tell by the broken steps, the remnants of carved balustrades. Now vines drape across the structure like mourning garlands. A sapling grows from the center, its roots splitting the stones with quiet patience. A memory stirs. This was where the king once stood. Perhaps not this king, perhaps one older, long buried, but a king nonetheless. You imagine him standing tall, his robe bright against the morning sky, his voice echoing across a crowd now long gone. He would have lifted his hand, spoken words of offering, of power, of promise. Now the birds nest in the hollows of the altar. Now the sun touches only leaves, and yet you do not feel sadness. You feel balance. The earth is reclaiming what was always its own, gently, with vines instead of swords, with roots instead of proclamations. It does not punish, it does not erase, it simply covers, softens, consumes. You move farther, past a broken wall where a fig tree has lifted an entire corner of the temple from its foundation. Its roots spill over the stones like a slow waterfall, brown and gray and braided with time. Beneath them you glimpse a carving, a god with 4 arms, his face still smiling beneath the weight of the forest. You kneel. Touch the moss. It is cold but not unfriendly. It yields slightly beneath your fingers, alive with water and light. A small green shoot curls up beside your hand, no larger than a fingernail. You wonder how long it has been growing there. A week, a year. You realize then this is the new throne. Not carved, not gilded, not lifted by armies or adorned with silks. It is made of root and bark, fern and fungus, stone and shadow. It bears no crown, but all things bow before it, even you. You return slowly. The path is more difficult now, the way back less clear. The jungle shifts behind you, not closing, just settling, like a blanket pulled slightly tighter. Back inside the temple, the change is more visible than ever. The servants are fewer. The guards gone. A corridor has collapsed, not violently, but gently, as if it had decided its duty was over. Dust hangs in the air like incense, catching the morning light in quiet spirals. No one speaks. You pass the queen's quarters. Empty. A robe lies folded on the bench. A clay cup still holds water. The doorway is open, the curtains fluttering. A single orchid rests on the table, its petals brown at the edges. No one saw her leave. Perhaps she never did. Perhaps she became part of the garden, or the mist, or the memory of someone's name whispered only once. You climb the central tower, slowly, step by step, until the sky opens around you. From here, Angkor spreads out like a map drawn in shadow. The towers, the courtyards, the pools, the gates, and beyond them the trees, endless, encroaching, breathing. You see vines curling around the columns of the outer library. You see monkeys swinging from rafters. You see moss growing in the cracks of the sacred cistern. And for the first time you see it not as ruin, but as inheritance. The jungle does not destroy. It takes in. It adopts. It turns stone to earth wall, to soil, statue to root. It carries memory forward in green, in silence, in layers. A bird lands beside you. Its feathers are dark, its beak chipped. It hops once, then twice, then flies off toward the trees. And you know, the throne has been taken. Not by force, not by betrayal, but by time. And you, just one among many, are only here to witness the coronation. Evening folds itself into the stone like a worn blanket. You walk without purpose now, not searching, not following, simply drifting through what remains. The air is thick with the scent of wet bark, old smoke, and faint jasmine. Light filters in through the broken roofs in thin shafts, golden at the edges, blue where the shadows claim the floor. And then you hear it, a voice. Not conversation, not song, a chant, slow, low, measured like the swing of an incense burner. It comes from the direction of the inner sanctuary, the oldest chamber carved from the first stones laid in the reign of gods and men long forgotten. You follow it without thinking, drawn by something beyond curiosity. The path is familiar. You pass beneath sagging lintels, past collapsed steps now softened by years of moss. The bas-reliefs have grown faint, their details lost to water and time. Warriors once frozen mid-battle now melt into each other, their blades dulled by centuries. But the sound is clear. Deeper inside you see the flicker of flame. And then the monk, old, bent, his skin creased like dried leaves, his robe hanging from a frame worn thin by decades of kneeling. He stands before a stone Buddha, barely visible beneath layers of soot and vine. In one hand a candle, in the other prayer beads worn smooth from constant touch. He does not look up as you enter. He chants slowly, each word shaped with care like water poured from a trembling hand. You do not understand the Pali, but you feel it, the rhythm, the breath behind each syllable, the way the sound hums into the very walls. This is no performance, no ritual for audience. This is prayer in its oldest form, survival. You sit behind him, quietly. The chamber is bare. No cushions, no statues, no offerings. Only the Buddha, a broken bowl, and a scattering of petals that have browned at the edges. Rain leaks through a crack in the ceiling, trailing down the far wall. A small patch of grass has taken root in the corner, its blades reaching for the fading light. The monk finishes the verse. The silence after it is thick, as if the world itself paused to listen. Then slowly he turns. He sees you. And for a long moment he says nothing. His eyes clouded but sharp rest on your face, like they are searching not for who you are, but for what remains of the world you both still occupy. Finally he speaks. You came late. His voice is dry, not cruel, just matter of fact. A truth spoken without decoration. You nod. He does not ask your name. Instead he gestures for you to come closer. You do. He kneels once more, lighting a second candle, placing it in a notch in the wall beside the Buddha's feet. His fingers are steady despite the tremble in his shoulders. When he finishes, he folds his hands in his lap and stares at the flame. It's better when there are two, he says. The shadows fall more evenly. You sit beside him. The room glows now, just enough to soften the hard corners to remind the stone that someone still sees it. He speaks again, but this time not to you, to the Buddha, or perhaps to himself. This temple was never meant to last forever, he says. Only long enough to remember what it feels like to forget. You don't reply. There is nothing to add. The candle flickers. A moth brushes against your shoulder, then vanishes into the dark. I've outlived everyone, he says. The kings, the guards, the scribes, even the ghosts. His eyes stay on the flame. I once taught 30 novices, then 10, then 1, then none, and still I rose each day, lit incense, swept the steps, whispered the verses. He smiles faintly. You'd be surprised how many things still listen when no one is watching. You glance at the Buddha. Its face is half erased. One eye gone, the smile faint. A vine loops over its shoulder like a sash. People come sometimes, he says. They take pictures, light candles, walk away. His voice lowers. But none stay. He reaches into a pouch and pulls out a small bundle of paper folded tightly, stained with age. He hands it to you. You open it. Inside is a drawing. Faint. A line sketch, perhaps made with a reed pen. It shows the temple as it once was. The towers sharp, the courtyards full, monks walking in rows, flags fluttering. He watches you study it. I drew that when I was 15, he says. After my first year here, I thought I'd leave. Thought I'd travel. Serve kings. Speak in courts. He chuckles softly. But the temple asked me to stay. You fold the paper gently, place it back in his hand. I don't know if anyone else will come, he says. The wind stirs the flame. Rain begins again beyond the walls. But if they do, they should know it was never about the stone, or the statues, or the kings. He closes his eyes. It was always about the breath. You sit in silence. The breath in and out. His, yours, the temple's. Somewhere a frog croaks. Water drips. The candle burns lower. You place your hand on the floor. It's warm, not from sun, but from presence. From life lived quietly, faithfully, without audience. You look at him again. Eyes closed. Breathing slow. Face tilted toward the flame. And in that stillness he seems larger than the temple itself. Not because of power, but because of peace. Because he stayed. Because when the towers fell, the walls cracked, the statues were broken and forgotten, one man kept chanting. One man whispered into the silence. And the silence somehow whispered back. At first you do not see them. The morning light is too soft, too slanted. It cuts across the floor of the courtyard in long ribbons, revealing only what it chooses. The stone glistens from the night rain. Ferns drip gently onto the flagstones. The temple exhales in silence. Then, as the mist begins to rise, you notice them. Footprints. Just a few leading away from the central shrine. You crouch to look. They are small, not those of a soldier or a monk. Barefoot. The toes slightly splayed. The heel presses deep into the softened dust, the arch shallow. One set moving slowly across the inner court through a corridor dappled with moss and disappearing into the light beyond. You follow. Your own feet land beside them, but not in them. You step carefully as if walking through memory. These prints were made when the ground was still wet. They've dried now, fragile. They won't last the day. You pass under the shade of a collapsed arch. One of the support columns has given way. The broken stones lie like bones in the grass. Ivy wraps around the edges, pulling downwards, patient and unbothered. Sunlight lances through the cracks, illuminating the path ahead like a painting left to fade in the rain. The footprints continue. Through the vestibule, where the dancers were once carved in endless procession. Most of them are gone now, their torsos washed clean by time. But their arms remain, their hands, always gesturing, as if still telling a story no one speaks aloud. You pause, not because of the carvings, but because of the sound. A soft brushing, not quite wind, not quite breath. And then you see the child, not the boy from the library, a girl. You had not seen her before. Perhaps she had not been here. Or perhaps the temple had hidden her from you the way it hides its last secrets. She sits in the crook of an old frangipani tree where the roots form a seat and the branches arc above like a shrine. Her robe is pale, almost white. Her hair is wet from the mist, and in her lap she cradles a bundle wrapped in old cloth. She does not flinch when she sees you. She just watches. Quietly, curiously, you approach slowly. She places the bundle beside her and reaches into the folds. From it she withdraws a lotus pod dried hollow with seeds long gone. She turns it in her fingers. "I followed the monk," she says. Her voice is clear but soft, as though shaped by the temple's acoustics echoing gently against the mossy stone. "He used to come here at dusk, sweep the courtyard, sing to the birds." You nod. "He's gone now," she adds not sadly. Just as fact, you sit across from her beside a carved naga whose head is missing. The grass beneath you is cool and damp. She speaks again. "I came with my uncle. He said we'd only stay a week. Then the roads washed out, then he left." Her hands move slowly, folding the cloth over the lotus pod. "I don't think he's coming back." You want to speak, but the words do not come. So you wait. The girl looks up at the tree. "It still blooms," she says, "even though no one waters it." She lifts her hand, points to a single white blossom high in the branches. The light catches on it just right. It seems to float. "Do you know why?" she asks. You shake your head. "Because the roots don't forget," she says, "even when the leaves fall." She stands brushing her hands against her robe. The bundle remains at the base of the tree. She places a rock on top of it, small, flat, smooth. A gesture of keeping, of not letting go. "I think I'll stay a while," she says. And just like that she turns and walks down the corridor. Barefoot, leaving prints behind her. Not deep, not heavy, just there. You remain under the tree for a long time, watching the petals fall, listening to the slow drip of water from the eaves, and beside you the footprints begin to fade, not vanish, just soften, blur at the edges, become part of the earth again. You rise, and for the first time you see Angkor not as a ruin, not as a monument, not as a kingdom that was. You see it as a garden, a place that receives, and remembers, and renews. You follow the girl's path through the corridor where light plays against the walls. The air smells of dust and flowers and old ink. At the exit you pause and look back. The footprints are still visible in patches. The bundle still rests under the tree. The temple still holds. And the silence, not empty, not final, feels like breath. You step into the light, and it accepts you. You wander without knowing why. There is no destination now. No one to meet. No ritual to observe. The temple has grown quiet, not just in sound, but in presence. As if even the stones have exhaled and surrendered to something larger than their purpose. The air is still. Not with tension, with stillness so complete it feels holy. You find yourself in the Hall of Thousand Pillars, a name it no longer deserves. Most of the pillars have fallen, and the few that remain lean at odd angles like elders trying to stand in a world that no longer hears their stories. Vines loop from one column to the next. Dust settles in the corners in thick, undisturbed layers. A bat flutters once above you, then disappears into the rafters. At the center of the hall an altar once stood. Now it is a shape rectangular, worn smooth by time, half swallowed by creepers. A pool of water has formed beside it, shallow, clear, ringed by algae. A single dragonfly skims across its surface. You sit, not on the altar but beside it. The air is cool here, wrapped in shadow and green light. And the silence, the real silence, begins. At first you think you know silence. The absence of speech, the pause between chants, the stillness of empty rooms. But this is different. This silence is full. Alive. It stretches in every direction, expanding behind your ears, beneath your skin, around your breath. It presses into you gently like a heavy cloth laid over your shoulders. It is not lonely, not frightening. It is simply present. You close your eyes, and you begin to hear the rustle of a lizard in the grass, the drip of rain from a broken beam, the faint groan of the temple's breath as wind moves through its bones. And underneath it all, something older, not a voice, a rhythm, like a heart that belongs to the stone itself. You breathe in, and the silence holds you. You breathe out, and it does not let go. In this moment there is no Angkor, no prince, no queen, no boy with manuscripts, no monk with candles, no gods watching from hidden niches. There is only you, and the temple, and the fact that neither of you is alone. You stay like that for a long time. Minutes, hours, you can't tell. Time slips away in silence, not lost, just unnecessary. And then, from somewhere deep within the corridors, a wind rises. Gentle, slow, it touches your cheek and carries with it the scent of smoke and lotus. And you know, the last offering has been made, not by hand, not by voice, but by presence, by staying, by listening, by becoming part of what the temple has become. You stand, not because the silence ends, but because you are full. You step carefully around the altar and into the broken light. The corridors are empty. The statues do not watch you. The carvings do not speak. The vines do not reach, because they don't need to. You are already part of them. You cross the outer courtyard where the rain has dried, leaving small puddles in the cracks. A bird hops beside you, then flies to perch on a naga's tail. The gates are open. No one guards them. You step through. Beyond the gates the path is overgrown. The jungle waits, not menacing, but inevitable. You walk slowly, your feet brushing old leaves, your hands grazing trunks wet with dew. The vines part for you, or perhaps you for them. The canopy above closes. The temple fades behind you, but it does not vanish. It lingers, not in sight, but in the way your breath now moves, in the way you no longer fear silence, in the way your footsteps match a rhythm you did not know you were keeping. You pause once, turn back. But you see only trees, and light, and the soft shimmer of dust where stone once rose. You bow, not deeply, just enough, because there is nothing left to say, and everything has already been heard. You walk forward, and the jungle receives you, not as a stranger, but as one who stayed long enough to hear what was never spoken. And in that stillness, that breathless, endless hush, you understand. This is not the end of a kingdom. This is not the fall of Angkor. This is how silence wins, not by force, not by conquest, but by waiting. By listening, by holding what remains, and never letting it go. The first thing you notice is the stillness, but not the stillness of sleep, not the hush of sacred chambers or the breathless pause of old prayers lingering in the walls. This is the stillness of early morning, familiar living touched by wind and sun, and yet nothing moves. You stand before the causeway again. The moat lies flat like glass left undisturbed for centuries. The reflection is perfect tower's sky, the fringe of jungle behind you, all laid down on water as if on memory. A lone heron wades near the reeds, its legs moving like shadows. The sky above is barely beginning to shift from ash to rose, from sleep to color. Angkor stands before you, but this time it is not the Angkor of kings, not the Angkor of processions and elephants, of incense trails and lotus offerings. It is the Angkor that has survived. The towers are weathered now, edges soften, dark streaks trailing down their faces. The balustrades crumble in places. The lion statues wear moss like shawls, and yet they remain, tall, silent, present. Tourists arrive behind you, but you do not turn. You hear their soft conversation in many languages, the rustle of backpacks, the click of camera shutters, the crunch of gravel underfoot. But you are still. You are not here as they are. Because you remember, not in detail, not names or dates, but in breath, in feeling, in rhythm. You step onto the causeway. The stones are uneven beneath your shoes. Some are missing, entirely replaced with newer ones meant to mimic the old. But the gaps remain visible like healed scars. You walk slowly. The air is cool. The morning mist lifts as you pass, and the towers sharpen their outlines, more defined with each step. Inside the outer gate, the carvings welcome you. No longer pristine, no longer shouting the glory of empire, but whispering. Time has worn them. Fingers have traced them. Rain has softened their lines. But they endure. The apsaras still dance. The gods still stand. The battles still unfold in long, looping relief. And above them, a layer of black lichen catches the rising light. You move through the galleries. The restoration has brought tourists, scaffolding guards in soft uniforms. But in corners where the light is poor, where the signs do not reach, the old Angkor breathes. You see it in the flicker of incense left behind in a clay bowl. You see it in the offering of water bottles beside a weathered Buddha. You see it in the footprint on a stone step damp from someone's bare feet. You step into the inner courtyard. The light shifts again. Golden now, strong. The towers burn gently in the sun. Shadows stretch long across the flagstones. Birds call from the frangipani trees. A group of monks passes, robes bright against the gray. One of them, barely 12, turns and looks at you. He smiles. You smile back. But the feeling is strange, as though two times are brushing against each other. Not colliding, just touching. A breath shared across centuries. You wander through the halls. Some are quiet. Others echo with the voices of guides pointing out carvings, explaining stories. A few tourists sit in silence, legs crossed, eyes closed, their backs against ancient stone. Somewhere a tour group laughs. Somewhere else a woman weeps. You do not stop them. Angkor is large enough for all of them now. It holds the quiet and the noise, the reverence and the performance, the memory and the forgetting. It does not judge. It does not exclude. It only remains. You find yourself in the same chamber where long ago the boy copied his manuscripts. The room is empty now, but not forgotten. A single offering lies on the floor, a folded note weighed down by a white stone. You do not touch it. You only kneel, breathe in the dust and stillness, and close your eyes. And you hear it again. The whisper of ink on leaf. The weight of verses remembered. The boy's voice, quiet, determined. And something inside you bows. You rise and follow the light toward the central tower. The climb is steep. The modern steps are safer now, with rails and signs. but the stones beneath are the same, smooth at the edges, worn by thousands of feet, by centuries of hope and doubt. At the top you step out onto the high terrace, and the view opens. The jungle stretches in every direction, green and gold, touched by mist. The rooftops of Angkor lie below, scattered like relics in a great cathedral of earth and sky. The birds rise and fall in gentle arcs. The clouds drift slowly. The sun hangs low and kind. You breathe in, and in that breath it all returns. The queen by the pond, the child under the tree, the monk lighting his last candle, the girl with the lotus pod, the march of elephants, the eclipse, the silence, the fall, the remembering, the peace. And you know, Angkor never ended. It only changed shape. It became memory. It became jungle. It became stone and vine and silence. And now it becomes you. You close your eyes one last time. The wind moves across your skin. The temple hums, not loudly, not proudly, but with the quiet strength of something that never asked to be remembered, only to be seen. And in that moment, as the sun rises fully over the towers, you understand what has always been true. Some places do not fall. They return. Over and over again. In stone. In silence. In you.